starting to record.
Recording now. We are live.
Perfect.
Welcome, Luisa, to our
hello.
today. How are you doing?
I'm great. I am very looking forward to this talk, and yeah, super excited.
Excellent, excellent. Well, let's get started. So, one of the things that has really been reaffirmed to me recently about this journey as a projector is that, you know, for all our different types, we have different types of authority. So, you know, I'm obviously a splenic projector. Raluca and Martina here with us are both emotional. We have different types of authority, and you're a mental projector.
Yeah.
So we're going to explore that.
Yes.
And one of the things that has been really re-emphasized to me from several different directions recently is the importance of all of us, whether we're projectors or whatever type we are, is to being back in our bodies.
Yeah.
Or being in our bodies for the first time, or whatever it might be. And of course, it's different for each type. But this is, so I'd love to start us with a little, some meditation thoughts to get us, all of us who are here live and who are watching this on the replay. It's an invitation for us to come back into our bodies where hopefully there's some intelligence that we can explore. Whereas, you know, I'm sure it might be entertaining for our minds to talk to each other for an hour. But what do you reckon, Luisa? Should we have a little bit of time to land?
Sure. I mean, I'm a body worker, so that's totally resonating with me.
Cool. Well, it'd be fun to hear all about you and your life and how you came to human design. But how about we do a little visualization through the centers of the body graph.
Mm-hmm.
So just breathing a few breaths, and the invitation is to close our eyes, and you know, as long as no one's driving on the call, to close our eyes and allow the breath to take us deeper into the body, and to turn our mind's eye first of all to the head center at the very top of the body graph. It's a triangle pointing up where the pressure to think comes in, and that's hard for us to, we can't really escape it. It's just a fact of life that there's this pressure to think. And then we're moving down into one of your defined centers, which is the ajna. It's the green triangle that points down. It's one of the awareness centers. Just turning our inner gaze down from the top of our crown down into the top of our spine, into our head, and then going down a bit further into the throat center, which is another one of your defined centers, Luisa, the throat center. And as we're looking inside, just being aware of the subtle sensations in the body. Moving further down to the open, undefined centers that you have, and in particular the G center. That yellow diamond right in the middle of the body graph. And for those of us that don't have it defined, it's white, but it's a diamond shape. I'm just looking into that part of our body. And going down a bit further to the level of the solar plexus and the spleen, which are on either side. It's very different centers. Those brown triangles, the other two awareness centers on either side. And just noticing, what do we feel and see in the center of our body at that height? And it's going down a bit further. Breathing down into the sacral center, which is a square, which all of us projectors have undefined. For generators, it's colored in red. And for all of us projectors and all the other types apart from the generators, it is a very receptive place where we can feel the energies of other people, the life force energy of other people. And now breathing down all the way to the root, which is the brown square at the bottom. It's the other pressure center, the head at the top and the root at the bottom. And on your chart, you have a lot of gates, but no center, no channels, so it's not colored in. I'm just noticing the sensations there at the bottom of the body, the bottom of the spine. And there's one other center, which is an undefined center for you, which is when people have it colored in, it's a red triangle. It's the ego or the will. It's the willpower to get things done, or the heart is its other name. And just slowly coming back to the present space and time, and gently opening the eyes and being here in the body. And the invitation for all of us is to keep that state of relaxed presence in our body, where the mind doesn't have to do too much. The mind can relax. So, you're so welcome. It's always a pleasure to take time to get in the body. So, why don't we pull up your body graph here and have a little look at that to start with. For those of you that aren't familiar with your body graph as well, it'll be cool to do that.
Sure.
So let's share that screen, and Luisa, if you can let me know when you can see that on your screen.
Yep, I can see it.
Cool. So learning to read your own body graph is, of course, a great starting point, and then we can start to look at, if we ever come to look at other people's body graphs, then that's great. As projectors, we're really well designed to study systems and become masters of different systems. Of course, human design is one of those systems, and for some of us, it's appropriate to guide others. But of course, just your chart to start with. So I like to just start with what's really obvious. Well, the obvious thing is you've got two centers colored in, two centers defined, the green triangle, the ajna, and the brown square, which is the throat. And then you've got 7 centers undefined. And we can think of those a bit like yang and yin, where yang is that sort of outward force of like consistently, reliably defined. It's about, just being there the whole time. Whereas the yin centers have their power in the receptivity. So how has it been for you, Luisa, so far? Like, how long have you known about being a projector and being a mental projector? How did you find out about it? And what's your journey been like so far? Has life changed?
I came to know about human design in 2012, I think. And the first time it was a friend of my aunt calculating my birthday and telling me all about the energy types. And one thing that really stuck with me was my decision making. And she said, you cannot make any decision just from your heart, from your emotions, or from your spleen or whatever. It changes every time. And she didn't really define it, but she said you cannot decide as anybody else does. So you have to, she said I have to wait a whole month. So more of this reflective being, like with the moon cycle. But then after a while, I learned that I have this sounding board decision making, to not look for the answers inside, but like go outside and just collect information and then take them back in to then feel what feels right with all that kind of whirling in together. And that was interesting. And then I forgot about the whole system for a while and got back to it through coincidence. I don't know why exactly I came back to being interested in the whole system, but I got this book of Chetan whatever, can't remember the name, but about human design. I think it's somewhere on my computer. And I got it as a PDF. And I calculated my own chart via an app on my iPhone. And then I looked up all the gates and all the channels and like everything. And I really, kind of digested all the information. Till the point I had this feeling of, okay, now I know enough and now I have to let it sit. And then I think one of the most changing elements was this idea or this knowledge about the need to be invited, because that made a huge difference to my life. I always wanted to start things and I knew so many people and I had many ideas, but I experienced many times that when I started something from a deeper will or a yearning for something, then it didn't work out. But when I didn't want it, or when I didn't work for it, and I was invited, somebody asked me to do something, then it worked. And so I gave it a try, actually, I think 4 years ago, to just look what happens when I don't, somehow present myself in a way and show myself to people to prove what I can do and who I am, but instead just focus on my own work and do what I love, and then see who would recognize me. And through that, here in Cologne, I'm living here for over 3 years now. I was invited to all the studios I work for right now. I didn't present myself to anyone, so they heard about me and asked me to teach there. And they really liked me, and so they got me in. And that happened to all the studios and all the businesses I work for now. So I never promoted myself. And so it just came to me. And that was such a gift to experience that instead of working for it hard way and not getting what I want. But it was a huge shift in my thinking, because all the time I had this feeling of you have to work hard for what you want to achieve, instead of just letting it come to you and trust in what's meant for you.
That's such a powerful description.
It was. So that was like the biggest change over the last years. But then there were like other smaller things, and maybe we just start there. But it was the whole journey, and I kind of infected many people around me with the whole system, because probably about my enthusiasm, which is obviously seen in my chart, but I have many people that got interested in human design because I told so much about it, and was so happy with this knowledge about my authenticity and also about this decision-making system for me.
So Martina's put this in the comments as something I wanted to mention as well, how this idea of that we have to work hard to make something happen. Such a powerful part of conditioning for, I would say, the vast majority of people. You know, and even for generators who are designed to have consistent sacral energy, as you know, this whole thing about working hard, you know, doing things that actually we don't really want to do, you know.
Yeah. Like one of my mantras is, how easy can it be? Yeah. Because I'm a fighter. I always fought for things. I'm good in achieving things. I was very competitive when I was little. And I could adapt to everything. But it was always hard work. And I kind of learned that this is the only way. So just experiencing it in a different level, to just feel it and trust into the process, just let it come. Well, like, it was a whole different experience of being alive. A little scary at first because you never know what's going to happen, but more joyful.
Sure. So, and so you said that it was about 7 years ago when you first discovered human design. How was there a time at which you were like, right, I'm going to try this, or did you come deeper and deeper into the experiment, or when did you really start waiting for invitation?
I think I tried it out a few weeks after I read it first, but I didn't really think, or I didn't believe in it. So I think I just mistrusted the whole thing at first. And so I was like waiting, but I was waiting with like a pressure. So I had just a picture of, I think it was one of the groups of human design, a cat that is looking like from underneath the book, looking there, waiting, and they're like, come on, see me, recognize me. And so I was waiting, but not unconditionally, you know? And yeah, so it didn't work out at first.
I think that's going to be something that a lot of people will resonate, that feeling of, well, come on, I've been waiting for 5 minutes. Where's my invitation? You know?
Yeah.
Why hasn't someone seen me? I've been waiting for like a whole day.
Yeah. And there was some fear connected to that as well. So like not being seen. I even had some nightmares that followed through all life. To not be heard, not be seen, to like being numbed under like a glass ball or whatever. And yeah, to be invisible. Yeah.
So a fear of being invisible, like if I just wait and don't do anything, then no one's going to see me. I'm not going to count anything.
The funny thing was when I was asked what I would like to have as a superpower, it was invisibility. So
how interesting.
It kind of, yeah, it was strange. I was kind of scared of it, but at the same time, I really liked this feeling of not being seen and just being in this realm of just doing my things and not being questioned by the outside.
So maybe there's a bit less scrutiny, a bit less being observed and watched. And...
yeah.
Interesting. And so how has that, you mentioned that you've been invited to work in a few yoga studios, is that right?
Yeah, and also relationships. Every time I kind of wanted someone, it didn't work. And when somebody just appeared and invited me somehow, one way or the other, to just connect, then it was easy.
Well, I know there's a lot of people who are going to enjoy hearing this because Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's the thing of as a projector, learning to wait for invitation, um, and then being able to tell the difference between an invitation that is a real true invitation versus like, oh yeah, come to the pub, or whatever might be just an invitation with not necessarily any recognition. So would you like to say a little bit more about that feeling of feeling recognized when you have had these invitations to, whether it be relationships or to the yoga studios where you're working? What does it feel like when you feel that recognition and that invitation?
It was like something that lit me inside. So as somebody was both seeing but also lighting up my inner spark, so that even gave me more power to do the things that I would usually do for myself. But that way it was like plugging in to something so that the energy could flow. And this feeling of like being recognized or being seen or felt was always like I could relax myself into it, and then again just trust what comes. Because well, I'm a yoga teacher, and for a while I tried to control what I was doing. So all my classes were structured and I wrote everything down, and then I think, like, hand in hand with this knowing about waiting for the invitation, trusting more life to come to you instead of just giving everything outwards, was that I was trusting in like the channel from above to give me information, or to just send creativity into my body, into my voice, instead of trying to just change or form the class before I even felt how the class would be in that moment. So both being in the studio invited, it was the same as being in a class, and it still is, and feel that the people are open and they want what I want to share. And then it's like something opens up inside me, and so I can give out. But at the same time, it's like something is coming through me from above, and that's just what I channel.
So it's great. It's a great description, and the ability to. It's about the other people in the space. It's about the other. That comes across really clearly in what you're describing. That it's because you could go into a yoga class and have it all mapped out and say, right, well, this is what works for me. This is what I do on Tuesday. Here's this thing, and
people do.
People do, and people can get benefit from that as well.
Yeah.
But there's something really magic about this this ability to be present with the person in the space, or with the people in your class in the space, and to bring through things that the logical mind couldn't possibly know. That what's needed. It's too subtle for the mind to figure out. So that's a really beautiful thing. And would you like to say anything else about the, because obviously as a mental projector, you have everything undefined below the throat. And also for you, you have the head center undefined and actually totally open in your case. So how do you experience those 7 open centers, which, sometimes we might refer to as yin rather than yang? But how do you experience them in your being?
Well, I was always very outgoing. So when people were talking about me, they said I'm a people person. I could easily adapt to people. I can feel what they are feeling. I was always very communicative. But at the same time, since childhood, I was super, super sensitive. So whatever I was seeing, whatever I was feeling, the environment around me, I absorbed everything. And so depending on the day, or as I said, the environment or the people, I so often felt overwhelmed by what I was just taking in. And I started early to just separate myself, to let everything sit and digest. But digestion was something that I had problems with over years. And my mom always said that I need more time than other people to digest life around me. And that was exactly that. I could feel it in my body. And then again, which is super interesting, I always thought I'm a very emotional person. But then there were times, both in relationships, but also just in connection with other people and friends around me, when I was with the people, I had very intense feelings. And then when I was alone with myself, I was like, did I really feel that? Where is it right now? So I was even in relationships with a man that I thought I loved, but every time I was not with him, it felt like nothing. And so I broke up with him after a while, not because of that, but just in reflection back to that moment, I now feel like, okay, maybe I liked him, but all the feelings or all this love I felt was just the amplified love he felt for me, which is super frustrating when you look at on the one hand, but now I have more of this sensibility about it. And so I know both with relationships, but also just friendships and other people, I have to be careful to separate what's mine and what's theirs, because I'm super open with that, not only with my emotions, but also fears and everything that's going on, which is mostly not me.
Shall we talk about the centers? I pulled your chart back up again. Should we talk about the spleen on the left, emotional solar plexus on the right? So was that, when you were describing that, that was where my focus went on your chart? Is that how would you feel that that's your open solar plexus center you were talking about, with feeling other people's feelings?
Yeah, well, as I said, it's sometimes super cool to feel the emotions and the feelings around, because that way you kind of get people better, and there is a very intense connection then if you allow it. But in other times it just numbs me, or it contracts my whole body, my whole system, and I feel there is something that is not mine, but I take it in, and my body is not able to digest it or to categorize it. And yeah.
So this is a classic, description of the open emotional center, is that, I'm the same. I have undefined emotional center, and this thing of like the people that have the defined emotional center have this, they're better equipped at dealing with those feelings. They're better equipped at processing them and allowing them to flow and move. Whereas for us who are undefined emotionally, then it's can be uncomfortable, and there can be conflict that comes with relationships when we start to see and you probably are you familiar with the not self questions for each of the centers?
Yeah.
So where am I avoiding conflict and truth? Is the question for this solar plexus center, as you know. And then you also talked about fears, and of course fears are in all of the awareness centers, especially. I mean, there's fears in all of the centers, but especially in the spleen. And what's very interesting with you is that you have not a single gate defined in the spleen center over there on the left.
Yeah.
So how is that to have a totally undefined spleen, totally open?
When I think about it, I think well, it sounds probably crazy, but I'm not really afraid of anything. It's just once I think about it and have like constructs and visualize what can happen, like all that, then I can somehow build a fear on something. But from, yeah, like when I go to this 0 point of just myself sitting here, I'm not even afraid of death. It's just, I don't know. But when I am with people, and I had just a recent experience, I was on a plane to South Africa. I was flying alone and just meeting people over there for a retreat. And I was super calm and happy, and I was looking forward to the trip. And there was a guy sitting next to me. And just the moment that he sat down, I had a very strict like feeling of something was like crumbling inside me, and my whole body contracted. And so then he asked me where I was going. And after a while, he confronted me with many of his fears, because he told me, well, as you travel alone, as a woman, it's super dangerous, and you shouldn't take the Uber or whatever transportation. And are you sure that you want to meet your people in a cafe in Durban instead of waiting at the airport? And so sitting there, everything was just coming inside, and I was super afraid, but I was realizing it was not my fear, it was his. But still, I could feel it, and it was so uncomfortable. And well, while sitting next to him, it was a night flight. I couldn't sleep, and I couldn't really like decondition from that because he was so close. And it was only the moment when he was standing up and we were leaving the plane after the flight that I can relax. Before that, the whole flight was super uncomfortable, because everything that he was telling me, everything he was feeling, he was just putting into me. And the moment that I lost him out of sight at the airport, I was super calm. It was like, okay, nothing can happen. And that was such a powerful experience, because it showed me how much it changes depending on what people I'm surrounded with. And yeah, just to practice to separate and to be aware what's mine and what not. But usually
Such a powerful story. Really.
Yeah, it was.
And it's that thing they say, that when you have a totally open center like this, it's a mirror. You know, you're holding up a mirror to the other person.
Yeah.
So, and you had such clarity on the way you described that, of, you know, all these fears that are his fears that are being projected onto you. So it's interesting. I mean, for me as a splenic person,
Yeah.
splenic authority, I have all these little micro fears that it's not like a debilitating fear. It's like, you know, I have 4 out of those 7 gates defined. And
Wow.
so it's like I'm going through life, and they're giving me this information. There's this little ping of like, oh, pay attention to that. And it's not like I have to change my plans most of the time, but it's like the spleen is just saying, well, look out for this, watch out for that, you know, pay attention to that. Or I'll see a notification, I've got a message from someone, and it'll be like, oh, let's see what the energy of that message is all about, you know. Yeah, really interesting to hear. We haven't heard from anyone on these chats yet who's able to articulate that, you know, who's got that totally undefined spleen. I think you're the first person with totally undefined spleen now. So how about the rest of your centers? Because you have 3 that are totally open, right? You've got your head at the top with no gates, the spleen we just talked about, and you've also got the ego, the will.
Yeah.
How is that?
Well, I don't know. As I said, I am super open. I know that. I sometimes even had the feeling I was just almost a reflector, probably because of like so much open channels and centers. Well, another one that, well, something that I read about that I could totally relate to was that I never feel home. It's always I have to travel, or I have to just explore different countries, different cultures, but it's not that I have this one home space where I feel this is where I belong to. And I kind of connected that to the root center, which is not filled, not defined. I can be home wherever I go, but it's never like really arriving. I don't know if that makes sense.
When you were describing that, I resonated with part of that, but I felt it more like the G center, that sense of belonging and purpose, and like, you know, like really belong, like, you know, this is my purpose, is to be here with these people.
Yeah, well, but purpose is something different for me. Like this, I know that environment is very important for me. So I change a lot, like a chameleon, wherever I go. And the people are affecting me, the places, the energy, the temperature, the nature, everything like that is really important. So I know when I'm not in the right spot, meaning not only the energy, but also from an aesthetic point, or from like a vision, how it looks, how it feels, like everything is affecting me. But there is never a place where like coming really home. So I take home with me. But what you describe as like the G center of purpose, this also changes a lot. But I never feel lost because I take it with me, and I know that I'm this like changing being, and I enjoy that. But the purpose maybe therefore is being in this process of shifting and becoming instead of being a certain way, for me.
It's really interesting because I know in the seven center tradition, the root is seen as being exactly that sense of like, this is where I belong. You know, that thing with the root. And you do have those 5, you've got a lot of definition in your root. You've got the 5 different gates with at least 8 different activations. You know, so that's almost a third of the activations on your body graph, or down the root, out of the 26. The design seems to be, you know, how do you feel under that pressure? You know, that pressure to do something. And of course, with your hanging gates that you have there, you've got, I mean, you talked about fighting, and you know, earlier in your life, you were describing that, and that's gate 38 is the fighter. And that's,
yes, I know.
Conscious and unconscious, right?
Yeah.
And then, so you've got those gates on the left side of your root there. So they're pointing towards the spleen. So despite having nothing there defined on the spleen, it's like that pressure builds up, and it's like those gates, there's nowhere for that energy to discharge because it's not connected, unless you're in a, you know, relationship with someone else, or, you know, from the current transit, or there's some way for that energy to dissipate. How do you go with that one? Because the not self question is, where am I doing stuff in a hurry to be, in a hurry to be free of the pressure, which never goes away, right?
Yeah. Well, that's tricky because this pressure of both being a certain way from the outside and at the same time feeling safe was always building up to somehow adjusting all the time. So I'm not like really fitting in. I even had this feeling of like my body is not fitting right now. So like I'm not feeling myself fully.
Okay.
And so there is one point where I can feel it in my body, very, very physically. And then at the same time, I feel like all the things that come from the outside and I take them in are making me smaller, not only physically, but also emotionally. So I shrink. And whenever I have this feeling, I know that I need to use my voice and I need to move my body.
Mm.
And as soon as I do that and I connect both my breath and my body, so to like fill the space inside out and give myself space again, then the whole system shifts and then I don't have this pressure again. Sorry, that was somehow my doorbell, but I don't expect anyone, so they have to wait.
Well, this makes a lot of sense about all of these open centers. So, of course, all mental projectors have the 6 that are below the throat totally undefined. So you've got the 4 motors and the G and I'd be curious to know how that works for other mental projectors, because what you described is very, very much like, it's kind of like, well, this is my space. And just because there's a space there, which is very receptive, doesn't mean that whatever energies from outside are welcome in there.
No, yes.
It's like that thing about, this is your house. And if each of these different 9 centers is a room in your house, it's kind of like 2 of these rooms are furnished, right? That the ajna and the throat, you've decorated and furnished. But then you've got 7 other rooms in your house, which are kind of, they're very open. And, when you invite people into those rooms, when the energy's they can be very beautiful. People can have beautiful experiences. However, you don't want to have squatters coming in and taking, people coming and camping inside your head, inside your wills, like that gets filled up. And I wonder if that's another way of looking at, what you're describing about feeling like, the space is small and wanting to kind of fill it up. Fill it up with your own emptiness almost.
Yeah, that pretty much describes it. And I don't know, you probably know this feeling. You're standing somewhere waiting for transportation, I don't know, train or whatever, and you're standing there on the platform waiting for the train to arrive. And then there are some people that just totally misrespect your space. That they walk in front of you very, very closely, and you feel their energy in almost their bodies, and they don't respect any space. And then there are other people that walk far away, but you still feel them. But every time a person kind of disrespects my space, it's like I get furious. It's like,
right.
That can't be happening. Why don't you feel that?
Yeah. I mean, this is like whatever the configuration of the body graph. This is definitely one of the things that, Raluca's got 7 open centers, but she's got 2 down at the bottom defined. We know a lot of people who've got 7 open centers. And I do find that as projectors, there's, in our projector community, most of the time, there is a lot more awareness around, that thing of like, well, have I been invited? you know, that just that gentle kind of the other person saying, hey, you know, should we talk about this? Or, you know, could I share something with you? Or, you know, it's very, very sensitive. But I guess in the mainstream that when people don't have that sensitivity, it's a different game, isn't it? And it's like,
yeah,
because, you know, when you go on a journey, it seems like, you know, people think, well, okay, you got on a spiritual journey, you become more aware, you become more sensitive. Oh, great, you can feel these things. But hang on a minute, you know, it's like, whoa, this is a lot to deal with. And especially when there are a lot of, you know, the average person doesn't have that level of sensitivity. So
yeah.
it's not necessarily easy, is it? Just because you can feel more, it's not like, oh yeah, all my problems are solved now, you know.
No. That's true. Well, I
So
have another image that I really like.
Yeah.
About both being emotionally open, but like open in general. When you are open and you don't have any gates defined in a channel,
Yeah, in a sense.
then it is like you don't even have like the glass in the window. So when you have this open center, everything comes in, and you have like birds flying in and whatever, bugs and clouds of rain, whatever. And for a while it's okay, but after a while it gets super, super crowded and it's too much, and they maybe fight each other, but you can't put them out because they're already in. And other people that have some gates or some channels they're defined, they have a window they can close. But when you don't have those defined, it's like you don't even have this window filled. So it's almost like all the time open. And so for me, it helped a lot to visualize, like, how can I put something in like a mosquito net? I know that I don't have the ability to make a glass, to just put somehow, yeah, like a barrier, but I can filter. And that helped a lot for me to just see, okay, how can I just select what I let in, even though I still feel what's going on outside.
Nice picture. Yeah. So how do you deal with that situation? You know, you're waiting for a tram or a train and you feel that there's someone. I mean, I wonder if the closest analogy, like for some, I'm wondering how someone who doesn't have these undefined, you know, these totally open centers could feel it. And I'm wondering if it's maybe like, you know, when you're just a regular person and then there's someone drunk who's, you know, wanting to talk to you or coming too close to your space, or, you know, that kind of thing. But the question is, how do you manage that in your awareness and also practically? You mentioned about the mosquito net visualizing.
Yeah, it depends. When a person is just standing too close and she or he doesn't really feel this intensity of energy, then I just step away, just take a step backwards or to the side. Sometimes I even look at them a little bit annoyed or, yeah.
Like you've got the eyes saying, "Don't follow,
yes, like,
don't you dare follow me."
Yes.
Yeah. What was that you said? Can you say it again?
Yeah. So I just pierce them with my eyes, or I step away.
Yeah.
If that doesn't help. And when I still feel their energy or something's going on that I can't control or I don't want, then I imagine it's running through. So it's not sticking, it runs through. So I'm just a channel and it doesn't affect me. And that's also an image that helps me. And yeah.
It's a really interesting thing because a lot of time, you know, you hear people talking about boundaries and saying, right, well, here's a boundary. But the truth of it is, if you're open energetically, you're open energetically. And what you're saying about maybe not attaching or not contracting or not, you know, just allowing it to flow and move and come and go without any attachment to it. That sounds really powerful to me.
It's the same thing. I think it's the same thing as before, not fighting too much, because as much as I fight what's coming in, then I give a lot of energy to build a barrier. Instead, if I let it come through and just like make myself soft, then it won't affect me. It just goes through and it absorbs somewhere a little bit of me maybe, but it's not constant, you know? It's more fluent. But as soon as I start to send energy towards it or try to control it or push it outwards, then it's like I give it power even.
It makes a lot of sense. It feels true.
Because as I know from my genius or freak channel, sometimes it makes so much sense what I say, and other times I look at people and they watch me like I'm a car or an astronaut, and it's like, what is she talking about? And I'm so enthusiastic about it, and it's like, don't you get it? Yeah.
Are there examples of situations? I'd love to talk more about that channel. I also promised Raluca that I'd do things in some kind of a logical order. So, but I wanted to ask you if there are any situations where, you know, because you've talked about the feeling of having people coming into your rooms or into your field that isn't something that felt good, and how you would work with that. What about situations like the situations where you really enjoy, you know, because I mean, for me, I relate to this on the level of the sacral, right? Because I've got an undefined sacral and an undefined emotional center, same as you. So if I'm around a generator or another person who's doing something that they just love to do and that they feel like they're really in their truth, it's an absolute delight to be around someone, or if someone's just feeling in their, you know, the feelings from the emotional center are feeling good, or even if they're feeling angry, but if it just feels really true and real, then I actually really enjoy taking those energies in and amplifying them in the sacral, so, and in the emotional center. So, you know, we talked a little bit about having squatters or whoever come into those rooms of your house, but
yeah,
how is it when you enjoy having you know, when it feels correct to have someone in those spaces?
It's like I said before, something like a double light, so that I get hooked and I then be even more enthusiastic or motivated to just do the things they want to do, or I just start projects with them, or ideas are popping in my head for sure to do certain things together, and it feels even like being high sometimes, and yeah, it's just like being on a drug of another person, which is not me, but I can drink from it, and that's great for a time, but I can get overexcited, and I know that. So from my voice, like today I was with my dad, and he is also a projector, very open, but he is defined in all those root centers. And so we bridge each other very much. But whenever I'm with him, I feel so much grounding, so I feel safe, and I start talking and talking and talking and talking, and he listens and he loves it, and he's so open in his whole channels in his head. So he supports me, and I have so many clear thoughts when I'm with him, and I can amplify like all that, what is going on when I'm alone, because I have the support from his positive energy. And I think that's somehow the same when I'm with other people that are in their powers, that both inspires me, motivates me, and then I even get stronger with my own senses, and it's like I'm more aware of everything.
I love this picture about the jigsaw puzzle of like different people having different pieces, and
Yeah.
it's such a powerful thing to enjoy the yin, that the experience of where being with another person we can experience ourselves more. Like I get that totally, like, because I've got a defined head center, and I find when I'm around people that have undefined, that there's that amplification process, and like I get really good ideas.
Yeah.
And the other person like may not look like they're doing anything, but I get better ideas when I'm in their company.
Yes.
Than if I'm on my own. Now we haven't. I mean, I'm a split definition, so I found that having other people around me is really good. You're a single definition, so how do you experience that, being a single definition, which is sort of, it's almost like you don't need anybody else. You're like self-contained.
Yeah, I'm very good on my own. I even felt sometimes like a hermit, which I'm not, but I enjoy being on my own. I can just absorb myself into projects. I was always good in just, like as a child, I was visualizing, I was playing, I was just being on my own, having my own fantasy worlds, my fantasy friends. And then when other people came into that space, I somehow affected them by those ideas. I told them stories, I told them the images, and just got them into that. But yeah, being alone was, since I remember, a big part in my life, which I needed to be then super open and fully aware and with people. And I really enjoyed both. But when I didn't have time to be with myself and go into introspection and learning about myself, thinking about myself, just reading things, drawing, and just being creative, then it was something was lost, or I was not living my full potential.
It sounds like there's a really healthy rhythm of being connection with other people,
Yeah,
sampling the energies, and being alone to have the both, you know, that sort of rhythm of going out in the world and then coming back into your space, and that really makes a lot of sense. Not sure exactly how that maps to human design, but obviously with the projector, it's great to have space in your own aura.
yeah.
How have you found it? Have you tried experimenting with sleeping in your own aura and sleeping with in someone else's aura? How does that go?
Yeah.
I would imagine it's quite a clear result for you.
Well, sleep is a very sensitive field for me, because I have like super clear and vivid dreams. And I don't sleepwalk, but I wake up often and feel my dreams in my body, or see some like visions around me. So I'm super sensitive even in my dreams, or especially. And so when I'm with other people and sleeping next to them, I feel the difference in either the way that I cannot sleep, or my sleep gets interrupted, so I wake up many times during the night, or the most obvious feeling is not being rested when I wake up in the morning. So I wake up and I know I had enough hours to sleep, but there's something that couldn't recharge. And I think sometimes even I have not my own dreams, but I dream the dreams of the person sleeping next to me.
It makes a lot of sense with how open you are in all the centers, so it doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. But if you tell that to someone that's not like introduced to the system or being open with this idea of absorbing things through the night, they look at you like, are you crazy? But it's really when I sleep too often next to another person, then I even have this yearning for just having my own dreams again.
I want my own dreams back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that comes up quite a lot, especially for us projectors, where, I mean, it's that expression of you want to wake up as yourself and sleep as yourself. But then you look at, you know, the common vocabulary of, like, you know, if two people have a sexual connection, we talk about them sleeping together.
Yeah.
And it's like, hang on a minute, this is a really weird expression, because the part about making love with someone it's not the sleeping part that's the cool part. You know, for most people, I think it's the part when you're awake that's the fun part, you know, and then the sleeping part while you're asleep, right? But we call it sleeping together. I don't know how it is in German, but
yeah, it's the same thing.
Right.
But I mean, how to handle it when you're in a relationship and you love that person, and it's so, like, it's conditioned from our society to sleep in the whole, like, relationship at the best in the same bed, same bedroom at least, and so you get so affected by the other person's energy,
right.
So most people don't even know the difference anymore, but it makes a huge difference if you pay attention to it. And how to deal with that situation when even your partner wants to be in your aura. They want to be with you all the time. And you think like, well, I want my sleep for myself, but I still love you. So how to do that? I mean, I'm not in a relationship right now.
For navigating that as a woman? Because I think it is different for men and women. I know for me that if I am really straight up from the beginning and I'm really honest and I just say, look, I don't sleep with women, you know. But then what I notice is if like one time, like I fall asleep or something, and then I'll wake up in the middle of the night, and usually what I'll do is I'll go and then sleep in my own space if I wake up at 2 in the morning. But then if I ever forget, then from that moment onward, it's almost like the woman knows that I'm not really serious about it. She's like,
that's the point. Yeah, they get suspicious, or they even find it rude.
Yeah.
And so they don't commit to it completely because they know, well, this person will never sleep with me. So I don't
you have the same experience with men. Is that what you're saying? That it feels the same as a...
Yeah. Well, I'm not in a relationship right now, and it's been a time ago that I've been into a serious relationship of like being together as long as we like really almost live together. So for me, for many years, it was not a problem. Sometimes I had some friends over, sometimes a lover, and that was super okay because it was just for one day or 3 days at least, and then I was alone again. But if you have this constant situation and you are in the relationship for a while and then you realize it's not the best thing to sleep together in the same bedroom, how to communicate that? Because it's super, or it can be very painful for the other people. for the other person.
Yeah.
When they don't know the reason or they don't understand it.
Yeah, I feel like I don't want to sleep in this. I don't want my aura and your aura to sleep together.
Yeah.
Can be translated as rejection very easily.
Yeah, exactly.
And very painful. Yeah. So, and I agree as well with, like, you know, changing a situation halfway through a relationship or a relating scenario, whatever it might be, is much harder than just being clear from the start. Like, look, if you're going to be with me, this is how I sleep on my own, and that's just how I am. And then it's the case of, like, you know, do you really mean it, or are you just sort of trying to go that way? You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's all a little bit of try and error.
Sure.
You just have to live it in order to know if it works or not. And I'm experiencing a lot right now with my diet, which is very interesting but not easy, because I am consecutive appetite, which means best thing is just to eat one thing after the other, but in most socializing events that's not possible. So I tried.
Yeah, it's all mixed together, isn't it? It's like,
Yeah, all the mixing is like the worst thing for me. And I mean, I love to cook, I love to mix, I love to like use herbs and all those things. I even studied Ayurvedic medicine with the cooking part and like all that. I was always super creative in the kitchen. And now that I learned that I have this very primitive digestion, which makes sense because I feel the difference when I eat just one thing and I'm super happy with it, and I even taste differently because it's like my whole system takes in the information of this food, and then I'm super content and happy and I don't need anything else. But from socializing, so same thing with the sleep, all the other people is like, oh great, just put more things into the bowl because that's just super famous right now. And I think, well, can I just have a bowl of rice, please? And they look at me, are you funny? Yeah, so this is something that I try out at the moment, but it works. It so works. And I just tolerate being even more different with that than before, but not tolerate to have digestion problems because I don't live that part. So whoever wants to go into a relationship with me now have to take that. And the sleeping part probably as well, so it's not easy. But that's the way that I can be in my full potential and take in the information best way.
I mean, I guess that goes down to, like, what is a relationship between two people? If two people are together, or like, what is it? Is it that there's this kind of thing that we saw in the romantic comedy films, or, you know, that we grew up with this idea of what something's romantic or it should be a certain way? Or
it's also conditioned.
Traditions and and when you're traveling, right, it's always, you know, especially if you're visiting relatives and you're two people and you're like, yeah, but we need two beds, and they're looking at you like, what's wrong with the two of you, you know, like. Or if you're traveling and you go to an Airbnb and you have to get a place with 2 bedrooms, it's more expensive, or whatever. And you know, I think it's something that requires a conscious effort. But then I guess there's the thing of, like, well, if someone's with you, if you're with someone and you're waking up feeling like you haven't slept, feeling like you've absorbed their energy, feeling like you're not yourself, why would they want that anyway? If you know.
Yes.
That this is the question of, like, what. But it's not simple or easy, right?
But I mean, it's also something like, it's a part of recognition. When you're in a relationship and you commit to be with someone and they recognize you with, like, whole, with everything, then I think, like, the biggest love, I act of love is accepting the person as they are. So letting me or whoever be just the way they need to be themselves. I think that's the biggest love that you can give. But it's probably more unconditional than conditional, and that's not easy in this contemporary world.
Yeah, it's kind of like an episode of, you know, it's probably works quite well with just two people, right? But then it's like in Friends when it gets when your friends get to dissect it, like, what? You don't sleep in, he doesn't sleep in the same bed with you. What's wrong? You know, and then all the doubts come in, and it's like, oh my God, you know, the two of you, it was just fine, and then one or the other goes, and someone says, what? Oh my God. How do you cope with that? Don't you feel rejected? And then you're like, yeah, I feel, you know, it's
and then you overthink it again.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, thinking can be very addictive.
Yeah.
It's like a virus, it can be contagious.
I mean, it also becomes more difficult when you think about projectors. Well, it's said from Ra Uruha that projectors are not meant to have children, for instance. And I mean, in this society, when you're together for a certain time, then the grandparents or the friends, after a while, ask you, so when do you get married? And when do you get the children? And what's coming next? And you sit there like, well, everything is okay. I don't need another step in this way. This is again conditioned. But to stay just in this moment with your partner and stick to your truth instead of taking this view of a relationship or a life or a person or whatever, and live that instead of your own thing. It's completely scary for most people to just trust that everything is all right, but they want this safety of, I am one of all the other people, I do the same things, so nobody can request or criticize me.
There's
well, I
definitely
have the feeling, yeah.
to be in a homogenous state of being, right? There's definitely advantages to belonging. The fact of like, well, you know, everyone else is doing this, therefore I'm you know, I'm not going to be singled out for being different because I'm doing the same as what everyone else is doing. Yeah, and it's interesting because we've had some mums who are projectors who love being mothers on, and you know, where I go with it is I just think it's beautiful that there's choice. You know, there's real choice, and for projectors, you know, and especially for women, because as being a mum as a projector is, you know, I know we're shifting into a more equal time, but you know, the mother is the one who nurtures the baby, especially to start with, right? So it's like, I just love the idea. I love feeling like, okay, we belong to this tribe of people called projectors, and we don't have to do what everyone else is doing. And producing children is definitely feels like a key part of that, because you know, full power to projector mums who love being mums. And you know, as Raluca was saying, it's like maybe it's possible with a lot of support from the tribe, from the village. And at the same time, it doesn't, you know, it's not a requirement of being in a relationship, relating with someone, or having, you know, being a woman that you have to have children, or being a man that you have to be a father or whatever. So
that's true.
I find it liberating.
But coming to this children and yeah, just being a projected child is also very interesting, I guess, especially when your mom is not a projector, which was the case in my childhood. My mom was a generator. I mean, my dad is a projector, but my parents got divorced when I was 2. And I think she always wanted me to be a generator because she trained me that I was enough or I was loved when I could prove myself in how I did in school, or she always complimented me on things that I achieved. So I had this feeling of, okay, the more I do or the better I am in this feeling or in this field and whatever I do right or perfect, that's how I get the love, or that's how I get this the recognition. So I worked more and more and more. And so I completely ran in the opposite direction as I was meant to with my being as a projector. I mean, she knew that I was very open and sensitive, so she supported that. But I think that's hard for parents when they don't know about their child to, I wanted to say breed, but to parent in the right way. Because everything you do in the first couple of years affects this child so much that the deconditioning later on gets harder or easier.
So what would you say? What would your advice be if someone was parenting a projector? Like, what would you encourage them to do?
Well, I think one of the things that helped me when I was a child, even though my mom was a generator, was to be let alone and to be presented different options. So I was not put into a certain way of like, this is the thing you have to do, but instead give options of like, okay, so we can do this and that. Maybe we can go there. Maybe we can go there. I was always let alone in the afternoon to just play on my own, to go outside, meet people, or just be in my room. So I was not forced to do this or that. The worst thing for me was sometimes in like a children camp where I was forced to do some drawings in an amount of time. So we had a clock there. It was even before elementary school. So it was so horrible. I was sitting there and was like, I don't want to do it, but I was forced to do it because everyone else was doing it. And I think that's something that kills the projector vibe, to be forced instead of having the space again. And another thing, maybe instead of proving and going out too much, letting them observe more. So being more receptive and aware than asking them to be active and give and communicate, but just let them come and give them their own time. I think timing is another thing that's very important. Yeah. So
allow the projected child to do things in their own timing with some free will and with some I mean, it sounded like being invited, what you were describing, like, would you like an invitation to come and do something rather than, right, you've got to do this now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it makes you wonder, doesn't it, how many of those 30 kids or whatever were on the camp that were supposed to be drawing for that certain period of time, like how many of them it was really true for.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's an interesting question. We haven't talked about your profile yet, and 1-4 is an unusual profile. What do you know about it? How is it?
It makes total sense to me because, yeah, both this investigator and opportunist sticks with me, with my personality. As I said, I was always a people person. I was good in connecting, good in holding connections or bringing people together, getting information from wherever I was looking. And then as well, this investigation of the topics that I was interested in. So when I was interested in something, then I would go into investigation. I was just digging deep, 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 looking for the essence, just understanding it, making it somehow my own.
Mm-hmm.
And then going out and talking about it, for sure, because it was always talking, which I still am. And yeah, so I looked about this Dharma, or this way of the 1-4 profile. I learned about it more deeply in a program from Jenna Zoe, other way around. And it said that the 1-4 profile is somehow clear of karma. So they're just here to enjoy life. They don't have to do anything to exaggerate it, but just to be here, enjoy life, absorb, connect, do things, but not prove anything.
It comes up a lot, this theme of having to prove something, doesn't it?
It does. And I've always had this feeling of, I have to prove, I have to get recognized, I have to be seen. But now that I know, like, okay, don't build up the drama, but instead just enjoy more and stop the perfectionism and instead just be. That helped a lot, but it's somehow I cannot grasp it fully, because yeah, it says you're not here to serve, but in another way, projectors are in service and in guidance. And yeah, it's a little ambivalent, but it makes sense as well. Yeah, and another thing is, like, when you go with the numbers, I know that the 1-4 profile is not finding their truth in well, being in service with others so that they get fulfilled with it and then be content in that way. And yeah, instead more learning about themselves and focus more on themselves, and learn how to be in this world, to then project that outwards, or to like just reflect this energy so that it inspires people.
You've got the, if we look at the stats on the Jovian page, I'm just going to pull that one up.
Yeah.
You can see that it's one of the less common types. I've just got your incarnation cross. Here we go. So can you see that wheel of the where there's profiles that are more common and 6 profiles that are less common? And the ones that have a difference of 3, the 1-4, the 2-5, the 3-6, the 4-1, the 5-2, and the 6-3 are the less common profiles. They're also said to be bridging profiles for the others. And if we look at yours, if we've got the first 3 of the lower trigram and the second 3 of the upper trigram, you've got the foundation of the lower trigram with the investigator, and then you've got the opportunist, which is the foundation of the kind of, you know, this is more solo, isn't it? The lower trigram is the solo ones, you know, about your relationship with yourself. And the upper trigram is about the relationship with others, really.
Yeah.
And you've got the foundation of both of those. So the investigator, which is obviously in your conscious, and then the unconscious is the opportunist, which is about that ease with other people, those networking skills, the ability to have invitations coming from within your network. So it's very interesting to see how we came to be talking here, in that, you know, Martina hooked you up and she's a close friend. So that makes perfect sense that, you know, for a fourth line, that the opportunities come from within your network.
Yeah, which is
rather than coming from a stranger. And I wonder if that was the same thing that happened with the yoga studio invitations, if they were like friends of friends that found out about you, or if they were like...
Yeah, for sure. And they recommended me to the studio, or they saw me somewhere teaching and like all that. Yeah.
That personal recommendation scenario. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Do you feel much of a resonance with the 4-1s? Because the 4-1's the same but the other way around, and that's a very unusual profile. Do you know any 4-1s?
No, I only know a 2-4, which is my dad, and we have a lot in common in general. So I can relate a lot with him, but as he is this hermit type, it sometimes is very challenging for me.
Okay.
When I'm in this feeling of like, okay, I need to connect, and he's like, okay. Yeah, but other than that, I know many other profile, like friends of mine that are either investigators or opportunists.
Yep.
But not the same profile as I am, so they have other things. I mean, Martina is also an investigator, and
really interesting. I've been listening to an audio book, and the guy actually gives you his time of birth. He said, I was born at this time and this place, and I looked him up, and he's a manifesting generator, but he's a 4-1, and at the end of his first chapter in his book, he's basically got this. The last sentence he says is how he's basically talking about when he wants something, and he basically just says, I am not going to be derailed. You know, he says, I'm not going to be derailed from the thing that I'm going for. And it's so interesting because that's exactly what it says about the 4-1. And I doubt very much if this human has a knowledge of human design from having researched it. But that 4-1 thing of that fixed destiny of like, you know, they're not meant to be derailed from what they're here to do. And it's so interesting hearing those words come out.
So what does it say? What does it say about the 1-4 then? Just wandering around and then something builds up, or what?
Yeah, well, the 1-4 is like I know them split into 3 groups, right? So the 1-4 is part of the it's a right angle cross. So you're a right angle cross of explanation, same as me, but with a different sun gate. So you're sun gate 43, I'm sun gate 49. I can't remember if Pascal, maybe she'll tell us, I think she may be 43 or 23. So she's either born around the same time as you, like 3 days apart from you, or 6 months apart from you. But what I know about the right angle cross is the 1-3 is the first, and then the 1-4 is the second of the right angle.
Yeah.
And I'm a right angle too. We're here to come up with new ways of doing things. Like we're like the research and development department. Whereas then the left angles, anything that starts with a 5 or a 6 is a left angle. And those guys are here to kind of take that innovation to other people.
Yeah,
So,
that's what I meant. Yes.
Yeah. So like the market, sales and marketing department. And if you look at how we work in the team with myself and Pascal and Raluca has an amazing talent for, you know, connecting with people, and she's not a 4th line, but she is very much doing that connecting with other people thing. So Pascal's just messaged say 43 is her son as well. So she's a 4-6 and you're a 1-4. So chances are your birthdays are 3 days apart from each other. So
mine's on the 12th, whenever hers is 12th of November.
November.
Yeah.
So she's going to be like 15th or plus or minus a day. So
14.
14. Yeah, yeah. So it makes sense. Because obviously the sun spends 6 days, approximately 6
Yeah.
days in each gate. So going through the 6 lines.
Hello, fellow Scorpio.
So, what else would we like to talk about? We didn't talk about soundboarding much.
Yeah.
Let's just, while we're on the subject of your incarnation cross, do you feel a close connection with this? I mean, you, I, and Pascal all have the same incarnation cross. It's the cross of explanation, which contains within it the freak to genius that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Yes, I feel super connected to that. It, again, is about timing and the right environment to be recognized for what I have to share. And as I know, like, the voice is one of my gifts, and talking and also storytelling. I have, I think, almost all storyteller channels.
Uh-huh.
And I was starting to tell stories even when I couldn't read yet, but I was reading the book for other children when I was 3 years old. So I was always imagining and talking and yeah. But as I said, like, with the timing, I had that many times in life, that I had this feeling of I was speaking out something too early for somebody to grasp it, or I was even too late. So somebody else was talking about a topic and I was like, wait, I wanted to step in, and then it was gone. And so this feeling of being too early or being too late came with like a physical being too early or too late. I never was on point wherever I was meeting people. I was always a little bit too early to make sure. And I think it's same with, just waiting for the right timing and the right person to be open for what you want to share. This is so powerful when you hit just the spot. And if you don't, you feel completely out of balance and even like a fool. And so I always had this how to describe it? It was like a sense of always explaining myself. Just like it's called explanation. Wherever I went and something worked out or it didn't work out, especially when it didn't work out, or when somebody was not getting what I was saying, I just lost myself in explanation, which made things worse.
You can't explain the way out, right? It's like...
Yeah. I was trying, and I was talking, and the person was sitting there, and it would be better to not talk at all after that. Like, miss timing.
The more explain, the more confused they get.
Yeah, definitely. And I had that so often. But that is coming from this, there is like maybe a little fear of like not being seen, not being heard, not being recognized for what I know. And the same thing happens when I'm with people and they are talking and they are telling me something I already know. I have to hold myself not to step in and say, yeah, I know. Or just step in and then follow that line to take over instead of listening. And that's like, I feel a pull of, this is my timing now. But it's not the timing, because then it would just come easily instead of this feeling rushed.
I get that feeling like sometimes I resonate with what you're saying, and sometimes for me I feel like this person's telling me something, and I get annoyed because I already know what they're telling me.
Yeah.
But then I go through a little inner process, and I've done it a few times, and I use the work of Byron Katie to this person shouldn't be telling me this thing that I already know. But then I realize, well, maybe they're not telling it. Maybe this isn't coming to me because it's something I need to know. Maybe this person is sharing this stuff so that I know that they know it. And then I can just listen, and I can be like, yeah, well, none of this is new to me. It's obvious. And they're just letting me know what's going on in their head, and it's quite a gift. Then I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's how they look at it. And I find this especially if someone's got gate 43 but not whole channel, right? Because gate 43 is a deaf gate, and it's like it's insight. I can't remember which one it is, but it's like they've got this little spark of something forming, and I'm already 3 steps ahead, and I can see how to communicate it and make it into a thing. But of course, 43 is a deaf gate, so they're explaining it, but they don't want to listen to me telling them I already know it. So I just like sit on the hands and just wait.
It's even worse when they told you before, and you sit there and like, yes, we talked about it 3 days ago. It's like, no, I haven't told you. Yes, you did, because that's another thing. I have a super sharp memory, which can be annoying for some people, because I know exactly what I said, when I said it. I know how people looked. I know when we met and all that. And they don't believe me sometimes. They say like, yeah, you're making it up. And I sit there like, no, this is true.
You already told me this. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I find that culturally in some countries that there's, like when I lived in Spain, I really struggled because, there'd be a conversation. It would basically be like, hey, should we go kite surfing? And then it'd be like, yeah, cool, let's go kite surfing. And then you go kite surfing. That's how I like to be, right?
Yeah.
Or I'm not sure, let's get back to each other later. But the way it would go in Spain would be like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Hey, what about going kite surfing? And, oh, well, the wind's like this and this and this. And what board are you using? And how about this? Should we go kite surfing? And it's like, even once you've arrived at the conclusion, then you still have the conversation 3 or 4 times more. Mm-hmm. And that's just culturally seems to be how people do things there.
Yeah.
And so it was a great exercise for me in learning just to chill the fuck out and not be so uptight about it.
Yeah.
Like, come on, we've already decided we're going.
Yes, especially when you're waiting for something to happen or to go, or just say it. Don't take turns. Yeah. But this patient part comes with my channel, I guess, because being patient and waiting for the right timing was never easy for me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But so I'm trying.
The thing we haven't really talked about is being a mental projector. And I had a very interesting description today from Cheryl, and she was saying that because I kind of like want to get to the point, but then I also understand that mental projectors like to be heard and like to be able to talk. And what I realized in what Cheryl was sharing is that there's 2 functions in it. It's like one is just talking to relieve the mental pressure and just talking it out to, even she was saying, even to relieve headaches and things. But then the other is expressing the deeper truth in the body that can come out through the words, and that can then be heard and help with decision making. So how is it for you with soundboarding? Is that something you work with?
Yeah, I have both. Again, it started when I was little. I asked my mom to have a notebook because I was explaining to her, if I don't write my thoughts down, then they are exploding inside me. And she was not willing to listen to all that I was telling her, because I came home with all this like impressions from the outside world, and I wanted to share, and she was like, okay, no, I'm full, thank you. And I was like, but I need to let it out. And so I got this notebook, and I'm still writing down things, and I'm talking, and so I need this
Expression.
catalyzer somehow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I know I need to listen to my words. So it's not writing, that's not enough then. I need to listen, and then I even understand certain things that I couldn't make sense of before. So when I talk to people, and that's somehow a way I use the soundboarding element again, is that when I'm not through with a process or with an idea I have, and also when I am teaching people, then I'm listening to my words, and while I'm talking, I understand certain things that I'm explaining them that before I couldn't make sense of. And so not only when I ask people about something that I have to decide on, and they give me their feedback or they reflect, and I have this soundboarding of taking their perspective in, it's also this listening to my actual voice, of the sound of my voice. So when I learned about that, that it helped me to listen to my voice and use that as another way of soundboarding, I took more voice notes for myself when I was around than writing down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's super cool, because so that way, yeah.
About being heard, because so far it sounds like the self-projected projector, where you talk and then you can hear your own truth. But how about being, because my understanding of soundboarding is not that you hear it yourself, and it's not that they give you their feedback on what you said. It's more that they'll say to you, yeah, you know, Luisa, when you said that thing about that, I wasn't feeling you. But when you said this and this and this, I really felt like that was your real truth.
Yeah. That also happens. And I have a few friends that I know being honest with me. And so they are more like a mirror, instead of bringing in their own emotions or like interfering with my.
What they do in that situation or something?
Yeah.
Like
And I read about that you need to pick certain people for your soundboard, because otherwise it will even damage you.
right. Yeah.
Yes. So I have those people, and when I tell them about decisions I have to make, or something that I'm not sure of, something that confuses me, then they tell me how they see or feel or get the situation from what I tell them. And they also reflect back to me even my body language, or whatever comes through. And that helps a lot, because sometimes when they tell me how I told them things or describe things, or they tell me, well, you have this choice or that choice, they make it more clear as a visual picture in my mind. And it makes me understand better what goes on with me in that situation from an outside perspective. So I'm not that much involved in that moment. So I can step outside, see it from another angle, and then I get back inside and have this second viewpoint.
I'm wondering if maybe it happens in just in the aura. If maybe there's some people that when you just talk and they don't even say anything, and then you feel clearer.
Yeah, I think that also works. I'm not always aware of it, I guess, but yes, that definitely happens. Well, there are sometimes when I don't want to talk, but I know that, as I said, my environment influences me. I love to sit in cafes or somewhere in parks where I know there are people, but I don't have to talk to them, but I feel their energy. And so sitting in a cafe, for example, and sometimes reading a book, sometimes just sitting there watching people or letting my mind run through whatever it needs to digest and mumble on, then I get more clarity just by sitting in this environment. And some ideas pop up, or I can make a decision better when I'm around people then, and not with myself.
Maybe that's
yeah.
maybe there's something there with the open centers picking up, you know, the head center thing. Raluca said quite a few things in the comments there that are quite interesting, so I'm just going to read out a little bit of that. She agrees. She says that she does her best weekly review or planning sitting in cafes. Yeah, it feels to me like I get because wanting to get this authority, I feel like sometimes I get these little insights, and I still feel it quite enigmatic as an authority.
It's not easy,
right? And so, and I know from a lot of mental projectors, they feel the same way. Like they don't 100% get it, but they're sort of figuring it out. Definitely feels like there's something about what we talked about earlier with the open centers, being able to really be in the body, and to be able to express the deepest truth from out of the body. But this thing about the need to speak it out and to get the energy out through the voice feels very, you know, because it's like the energy is up in those 2 or 3 centers. That to be able to come out through the voice feels very, very relevant, and especially with you having the cross of explanation that I have. You know, that's the pure projector channel, that 2343.
It's a what?
It's called Ra calls it the pure projector channel.
The pure projector. Okay, so I'm like the projector of projectors, or what?
Yeah, it's a bit like with being a mental projector, you don't have any motors. You're really here to guide. You know, it's like you're the pure guide because you don't have all the other stuff going on, and you've got those 7 open centers which can really, you know, sense and feel what's going on in the environment around you and with other people. So, you know, when invited and when it's correct, it's like pure projector channel.
That's why I love my work as a healer, because I just dig into what's needed and do the work, and then I go out again, and I like completely sense where I'm needed. Sometimes it's more on the bodily issues, so I work with them with body work. Sometimes it's more speaking and like coaching and just being a reflector for them. Sometimes it's with digestion, sometimes it's with stories, so it depends. And I love this because I have to be open to do my work. If I'm fixed and I make a plan of like, okay, today I do this and this and this, it never works. Or I get frustrated in the end because the outcome is not satisfying, neither for me or for my client. And yeah, as you said, like being this projector or pure projector, I had this image, for sure, images and stories coming up of an octopus, because it's like, I don't know how you call it in English, but it's this head being. It's just a head and awareness tentacles.
Okay.
I just started to read a book about octopuses. They have awareness and just like thinking in all the arms.
They're very smart. They can figure out.
Yes, they're super smart. And that explains again how the intelligence of our body works as well. I mean, they don't have this digestion part, they don't have the feet, they just have the head and all those awareness feelers. And that's sometimes how I feel. I have this head and everything else feels around me to make sense of the world, but at the same time, and again, okay, I think this is my power animal. Through the ink, I can make myself invisible.
The power animal. Okay,
Yeah.
invisible.
Yeah. So this is super funny. But yeah, maybe that is the mental projector image as an animal. Being with a head, the feelers, just feeling your way through the world. And when you don't do that, then you get stuck, because that's how you are.
Octopus time. Well, is there anything else about your chart that you want to mention or ask about or discuss or explore? Is there anything in your chart that...
There's so much, but I just picked something.
We covered quite a lot.
Yeah, we did. Can you open again my chart so I don't have to look
Yeah, let's pull it up.
at it on my screen?
Here we go.
Okay. Well, one thing that I'm still not like super sure about is well, two things. First, how to navigate through this being as open as I am, especially when others are super defined in the centers that I'm not, and you have the feeling of like there is an invitation because they fill you with something, or they give you like the energy or the impulse that feels right. But when they are gone, then it's like this invitation or whatever breaks away. So maybe those are not like real invitations, but it feels like something is clicking, but it doesn't come from me, and I try to grasp it and hold it to react to it or to like answer. But therefore, sometimes it's like I hold too much because it feels like, oh wow, there's my invitation, and then it breaks away. And that is super painful, and it makes no sense really for myself, because when I try to explain it to myself, it's like, but I waited for the invitation. The invitation came through a person, through an energy or whatever, but it was only there for the time the person was with me. I don't know if you get what I want to ask.
Yeah, it feels to me like it's almost that the mind has an expectation. You know, it's like it sounds like when it just works, almost on an unconscious level, it just works. But then if the mind comes in and says, "Oh, look, you know, you've had an invitation, so therefore, you know, it means something's going to happen. This is going to be a good one because you got a good invitation," and then the mind sets up an expectation that it's going to be a certain way. Whereas if you were still in your openness, you'd just be like, oh, okay, well, let's see what happens. And then again, you'd be playing that rhythm of like, go into connection with someone, see how it is, then come back to yourself, see how it is. You know, that dipping in and dipping out, but coming back to yourself all the time. And I don't know, for me, the baseline with relating is whether it's whatever kind of relating it is, whether it's something professional or intimate or personal or a friendship, how do you feel when you come out? Like when you come back to yourself, you feel like more like you. Like, you know, at the end of this conversation we're having, when you go back to your space, do you feel more, you know, do you feel more you? Or do you feel like, oh, I got carried away in that thing and we ended up talking for 2 hours and, you know, I really should have stopped after 1 hour because enough was enough, or, you know, whatever. But it's, and then the things I would say look out for is, you know, all those electromagnetic connections, wherever you've got a hanging gate, you know, where does that hook up with someone when you're connecting with someone else? Now, interestingly, if we look at, do you know which channels are the manifested channels? It's basically anything that connects a motor directly to the throat.
Oh, yes. So that would be the channels of like 14 to 2 and up those channels, right?
More so the direct ones, because if it's the sacral,
Okay.
then if it's something to do with the sacral, then it's a generated channel because it's got the tendency to make you into a generator.
Yeah.
Whereas when we look at the channels that go the 35-36 and the 12-22 connecting the emotional to the throat, 21-45 connecting the ego to the throat, you're very, very white on those areas.
Yeah.
So the tendency is likely to be more that you're going to get pulled into generator mode.
I think that's one of my difficulties, because I get like not only carried away, but I feel this energy of being productive all over, everywhere. And then it eats me out from inside. And so both this point of when enough is enough is super hard for me to get. And at the same time, this burning myself out or burning myself from both ends, like burnout, literally. I had that many times in my life because I was just taking this energy of being, a generator in, because everyone around me was being productive and everyone knew about me, that I was very competitive and I could work a lot, but I just trained myself to be that because I felt it everywhere and I tried to just go with that energy. So I just recently started being self-employed, and so I started to not work all day anymore. And beginning from that, I had so much energy, so much clarity, was more creative, and it was like, whoa, okay, this is the life how it has to be. Because before I was working the whole day, I was super productive, but I was burned out every night. Yeah.
Right. So anything that connects a motor or connects, especially the sacral, is something to look out for. Now, I'm just showing here the black on your chart. So this is your personality. And these places is where it's much easier to be conditioned, because this is who we think we are. This is our personality.
Yeah.
And especially down at the bottom of your body graph, there's 3 channels which can potentially get hooked up. So the 34 is a hanging gate on the sacral. So that can get hooked up by the 57, by the 10, or by the 20 on the throat. So any of those are gonna turn you into, gonna make you think you're a generator while you're hooked up there. Then you've got the gate 59, which again, that hooks up the emotional generator channel, which is also a very sexual channel as well. So that's one to look out for, that 59 there, that could sweep you away in a direction of doing stuff. And then you've got the 63, you've got the gate 60 with the gate 3 getting ready to get hooked up. Now, these black places on the chart is where it's much easier for your mind to come in, even in the defined channels. This is who you think you are. And, we've also got the other thing about getting into action and doing stuff is all of these gates on the route. The 3 that are in a row there, the 54, the 38, and the 58. So that feeling of like wanting to do something to be rid of the pressure. If we pull up your design, you see in your design, you've got no potential for sacral hookups at all. See, there's nothing on any of all the generated channels are the ones that there's 9 of them that connect to the sacral.
Yeah.
And you have none of those in the red in your design. So, but in your design, you've still got these 4 connections from the root which want to connect up. So, yeah, my guess would be that discharging energy through movement is very healthy for you.
Yes, I need movement to bring myself both out of my head and also back into myself. Because when I start moving, I cannot be in the outside. I'm completely with myself.
Taking you in.
Yes, it takes me in, and it also brings more insight of what's going on emotionally, and like where I hold different energies, where I hold emotions, where I hold memories of experiences. So my body is like really a map for me. And it's my tool, it's my language when I don't use my words. So that's super helpful and super healthy. And if I feel miserable, the thing that works best is moving.
It makes sense, right? So your cross of explanation, the freaked genius, you're aware of the timing of that, but that's more about you giving outer authority to other people, for you to come back into the body and come back. This is where we started the conversation with movement and being in the body, in that openness.
Yeah.
That really rings true, especially with all that energy on the root there.
Yeah, just one thing that came up, and I think maybe that can kind of finish our call or so.
Sure.
Is when I'm just moving, so many people get my energy. Not when I'm talking, when I'm moving. I sometimes call myself a body poet because I come from dancing. And so everything that like I feel what I do, but it also from the outside looks, that's what I heard, it looks beautiful. And so when I teach, I have many times where people just watch me and they don't want to do it themselves. They just enjoy me watching.
Oh, watch.
Yes. And so I was asked many times if I want to do performances, and I have like an Instagram channel where I do just my movements, not talking, but I move and I have the music and like all that together. And so I just got this feeling of, okay, this makes sense when I'm just being like in my unconsciousness, in just the body and moving and talking through my body instead of my words, then I get recognized without trying. Yeah.
It makes sense. And also, it's the power of the yin, it's the power of the receptivity, it's the power of your body being moved. It's so simple and so beautiful to, you know, just your body being moved by whatever is there in the moment, in the space with those people.
Yeah.
So anything you say is, you know, it's kind of a cheap imitation of what's moving through your body. But if the timing's right and you've got an explanation, it may help other people to get it, because that's
yeah, I certainly need both, but maybe it's a good practice to know about those two like channels, both with my voice but also with my body, and see how each of them are differently affecting or inspiring people.
I mean, look at this conversation, you know, words are the best thing we've got to be able to communicate in a way that, but then there's the deeper communication that's going on, you know, there's the deeper levels of connection between people that are happening. And, you know, it's almost like maybe the word's just there to give the mind something to focus on so it can shut up long enough to let the other thing happen, you know.
Yeah.
I had a session with John Martin a week ago, and 5 days, and I left there feeling like, well, you know, whatever I say is just going to be my mind talking, so I should just shut up.
That's good, yeah.
Thanks.
No, not the shutting up part.
Sorry, I'm teasing. But yeah, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we have words to communicate, so
yeah. And it's so powerful to connect with the language, even different languages and slangs. We can make a connection just through the vibration of our voices. It's sure. super powerful.
Yeah, and it's that thing, isn't it, of where if you feel what someone's saying versus if you're like,
words are not important. Yeah.
You know, get me out of here. So, I mean, we've been on for over 2 hours, so it can't have been too bad. I'm teasing. It's all good. It's been fun, eh?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, I love to talk, and I have the feeling that you like to talk as well. So.
Well, I have my moments, but yeah, I find I either talk or I listen, and I tend to kind of, you know, I want to feel like there's some value flowing. I think that's how it is for me. You know, I've got my sun gate, the same incarnation cross, but
yeah, my
sun gate's the gate of revolution on the 49. So it's about it's like the judgment for what's correct for the tribe, you know, for what.
Yeah.
And I guess that's my thing, is like, okay, so I hear from mental projectors, they like to be able to talk, and I can listen, but then at the same time, there's this part of me that's like, right, let's get to the point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hope I didn't.
Oh, we did, yeah. I'm still trying to understand this thing about, you know, because it's like, you know, if I listen to a mental projector talking for 2 hours and they say, oh, great, yeah, my headache's gone, and and I'm like, okay, but like, you know, I want to feel useful. I want to feel like, well, did it clarify something? You know, did it, you know, and yeah, but I mean, this conversation is just to really explore. You know, this is what we've done. Explore. And I know a lot of people will watch this and they will, you know, listening to you, it's obvious to not because of anything you've said, but in how you communicate, that, you know, you've explored a few different things and come to some clarity, and you're still coming, you know, there's always more work to do. And I know that there'll be a lot of projectors, and especially mental projectors, will be like, cool, there's some real clarity here, and we'll enjoy that. So yeah, we'll get the replay up and people will be able to check it out, and Now, just a personal question, do you do acro yoga as well as the yoga?
Not anymore.
Uh-huh.
I did for a while, but I'm super selective with people.
I thought you might say that.
Yeah.
You never
And so
like anyone.
touch is very important to me, but it's one thing to touch people and another thing to trust someone to hold me and to touch me. I mean, I super enjoy that, and that's what I need. This, like, I'm a tactile person very much, but it takes a lot to trust someone, especially in the field of body and movement where I grew up with. Yeah, and I don't know, sometimes it's too much energy that gets transported through being together with the body too long. So maybe that's it. Yeah.
I find with the acro yoga that there's different levels of connection, and some people play the game on a physical level,
Yeah.
and it's just, physically, but then there's also that sensitivity of like the energetic thing of two people working together of like, okay, do you, you might feel physically safe, but emotionally you might feel, nah, that doesn't feel good. So,
Yes.
yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's a passion of mine, but I guess also, like a lot of what you've described is much more individual. It's more your expression, which is very different compared to two people working together to build that trust and teamwork and stuff. So
I mean, I like to assist people, and I use some practices out of acro yoga to bring a client or just the whole class more into a certain feeling or just opening or whatever. But then that's a tool, and it's not the whole practice of like staying together. It's just I go in, I help, I heal, I do whatever, and then I go out again. And that makes sense for me. But to stay together too long when it's not a romantic relationship or a friendship or whatever, then it's too close.
Yeah, too intimate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, and I get that, because it's like I'm always amazed when people do acro yoga, but there's no feeling of any connection. It's like, oh, yep, next one, let's do these moves, and so yeah, it's very, very interesting. So yeah, I can resonate with what you're saying.
Well, thank you for the question, because I never thought about that, but yeah, makes sense.
Oh, cool. Well, it's been a great to connect, and if I'm ever in Cologne, I will say hello.
Yes, please do. Or come to a yoga class without acro.
You never know. You never know.
Yeah.
Is Martina there in Cologne as well?
No, she's in Hamburg, but she visits many times, and I will see her around Christmas, I guess.
Cool.
Yeah, but just to make sure, because I have family in North Wales.
Okay.
And so I am not that frequently right now, but I'm many times when I can have the time in the England, British countries traveling.
Well, I'm down in the south of Wales when I'm in England. I'm currently in America. I'm in Colorado. Yeah. But when I'm in England, I have a base in Bath. So I know that Bristol Airport connects to Cologne, but then if you're going to North Wales, you probably go Birmingham or Manchester or something.
Yeah, I was sometimes I was traveling from London up, or I go to Manchester, and then it's near to Bangor.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, I know where you are.
Yeah.
But well, if you're passing by, drop in.
Yeah, sure. So I'll let you know once I'm in Bath next time.
Perfect. Well, have a good night. It must be getting late there.
Yeah.
And thank you for your time and your energy and your sharing.
Thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Cool. See you soon, Luisa.
See you.
Ciao.
Bye.